name's Julian Fack. I've been in sporting trials so long that the first car I built is now winning its class in historics. Right, the programme today is, we're lucky with the weather, the programme today is we'll be going down into the trials field, which is right beyond the end of this field here, quite a way down there, and we'll start off, for the novices, we'll start off with a line of 3 slaloms. These are straight lines of sticks, similar to ski slalom. The first one is on the level, the second one has some slope on it, and the third one has more slope on it. The idea is that you will therefore learn to drive the cars using the fiddle brakes. Now, this is where we get a little bit technical and where you must pay attention and understand that driving sporting trials cars is completely different to anything you've ever done before. It is not the same whatsoever. So I'll now demonstrate how you drive a sporting trials car in terms of sitting down and what you do. So here's a sporting trials car. This particular one has brakes, fiddle brakes, inside and outside, so you can use your left or right hand. The reason for that is so that the instructor's got an emergency brake if required. So, sitting in the car, got 3 pedals, just like a normal road car. Accelerator on the right, clutch on the left. In fact, I'll tell you what, I'll just remove the bonnet so you can see. Okay, so we got normal accelerator on the right, clutch on the left, absolutely normal as a road car, and there's a brake pedal in the middle. We'll come back to that one in a minute. Okay, gear lever, normal place, but this is the important bit, the fiddle brakes. Little joke I always tell at these do's is if your steering fails, you might be able to carry on, but if a fiddle brake fails, you go straight home. It's a silly joke really, but makes the point that the fiddle brakes are the most important thing in the car. Why? Because the cars don't really steer. The only way you can steer these cars is using the fiddle brakes. If we're lucky, I'll do a demonstration down in the trials bowl down there, and I'll show you that you can turn the steering left and have the car turn right.
That's where we've been going wrong. We nearly connect, yes.
Unlike these guys who are filming, who managed to put a wrong-handed rack on their car where the steering, when you turned it left, the wheels turned right. On my car, if you turn left, the wheels go left, but the car can still go right. So
we didn't know whether to do trials or just join a circus.
Right, this is how you drive a trials car. Either hand, but in my particular case I steer with my left hand. Left hand locks on the steering wheel knob. You never let that go, and you never use the other hand for that at all. One hand on the steering wheel knob. The steering wheel itself is irrelevant. It's just the knob that counts. So you steer with one hand always, okay? Why? Because you need the other hand for the fiddle brakes. So every time, get this into your minds, every time you turn the steering wheel, okay, you actuate the appropriate fiddle brake. So you turn left, you pull the left hand fiddle brake. Now I'm not talking about yanking it on, I'm talking about a gentle finger pull on it. What you're doing is you're biasing the torque on the rear wheels to help the car to turn. If you don't do that, the car just plows straight on. Basically, the front doesn't grip at all in terms of steering. Okay, so you turn right and pull a little bit of right fiddle. So that's fiddle brakes for steering. The other time you use fiddle brakes is on a cross camber. So you're driving on a cross camber straight, you're not steering, but the upper wheel is light. These cars are narrow, centre of gravity is high, the upper wheel is light. Chances are the upper wheel will spin if it's slippery at all. Today's very dry, we won't have that problem, but essentially get the idea in your mind. So the top wheel, you'll be pulling the top fiddle brake. Okay? So that's the second reason for using the fiddle brake. Now, people think that you use the fiddle brake for traction. A lot of people think this, oh, you have a fiddle brake so that, like on a tractor, if the wheel spins, you pull the brake. Well, yes and no. The trouble is, you don't know which wheel's spinning. Even expert drivers don't know which wheel's spinning. So essentially, if you're going straight and the car's level, there's not much point in pulling the fiddle brakes because you probably pull the wrong one and that'll probably stop the car. So if you're going straight up a hill, leave the fiddle brakes alone. So that's the fiddle brakes. Just a quick reminder, turning you use them, and cross cambers you use them. Okay, you also use them together for stopping. Okay, now what's the middle brake pedal required for? That only operates the front wheels. Now, it is absolutely useless in most circumstances, but where it is useful is coming downhill. So you go up a hill, you turn down, and the car wants to rush away. You pull the fiddle brakes, and oops, the rear wheels lock. Why? Because you're facing downhill, the rear wheels are light, front wheels are heavy. So that's when you operate the front brake, and it's a normal brake as a normal car. So going downhill it will work, and I'll demonstrate that. You can go down very, very steep hills, like 60 degrees downhill, and you can stop on that using those brakes. So that's the brakes. Now, the second most important control in the car is the accelerator. Now, the accelerator is absolutely critical. We have to drive most of the time as if we were driving on snow or ice. These cars have far more power than they need for most purposes. So that if you accelerate too roughly or too much, you'll spin up the wheels. And if you're on grass, you'll stop. I'll just explain that very quickly, get in your head why this is the case. If you drive on tarmac and you spin the wheels a little bit, the car will still accelerate and you'll shoot off. If you're on grass, this won't happen, or any natural surface, heather, bracken, whatever. Why? Because as you drive along, these extremely poor tyres, we choose the very worst tyres that it's possible to buy, and these are mandated in the formula. They are really, really bad. These tyres, as soon as they start to spin, they will break the grass or the bracken or the heather or whatever. When you break natural growth, what do you get? Sap. What is sap? It's like grease. So you break the natural surface, you grease up the tyre, and then it spins. And you can't get away from that. Normally, that's it. You spin up and you stop. So you drive to not break traction. Now that's quite difficult because you're driving along nicely and suddenly you're faced with a steep hill, and by any road car standards we're talking about very steep hills. So you start to go, what do you want to do? You want to push the accelerator. Now an experienced trials driver does exactly the opposite. He will accelerate on the flat and back off on the hill. Okay. In most circumstances, if you're driving in normal trials mode, backing off will increase the grip and increase the speed. Now that seems completely counterintuitive. It's just exactly what you're not expecting, but it is a fact. So, gentle on the accelerator, don't stall the car. So if you, for instance, pull the fiddle brake hard, you're going to have to put a little bit of extra accelerator on to make up for the extra load of your braking. But not much. You're talking a tiny flex of the toe. But apart from that, that's what you'll learn when you do the slalom. So you come in the slalom, you turn tight, and these things turn very tight, and you pull the fiddle brake. At the same time, you give just a whisker of extra throttle to keep, and what you're aiming to do is to keep the revs constant, thereby not increasing the spin and so on. Last thing I'm going to talk about at this stage is the clutch. Right. You will be tempted to keep dipping the clutch and slip the clutch and slow the car down and so on. Don't do that. For a start, we don't want to wear our clutches out, but mainly because a clutch will greatly increase the torque at the wheels when you let it out. You get a sudden surge of torque. What do you want? You don't want a sudden surge of torque to spin the wheels. So, slip the clutch to start in a normal way as just a normal road car, get going, and then leave it alone. And the only time you'll then use the clutch at all is when you go downhill. When you go downhill, the car will tend to race away because the engine's been unloaded going uphill. You turn downhill, the engine's unloaded, whoosh. You don't want that. Last thing you want is to go fast. So at that point, going downhill, you can dip the clutch and just literally roll and control the speed with the brakes. So those are the essentials of trials driving at this stage. So we won't get into much more technicalities at this stage now, and we'll now move on to the trials hills and the slalom. So good luck and enjoy your day.
Thank you.